Alright, I've got this open in X14 trial. I took a look at the plan last night and fiddled around with it a little bit. And I found a whole bunch of things that could be done differently. I'm going to probably say that they're done wrong and they need to be done correctly, but I'll just say differently. I've got two plans open. I just made a copy of yours, and I've got one that I've got open here that's unchanged. This is what you posted, and then I've got another one over here that I've made a few changes to. And I'm not going to go through and explain. It would take, hour or more to go through and fix all the things that probably ought to be fixed. So I'm just going to give you some hints about some things. So this is your plan. First floor, and let's go up to the second floor, and you see you've got all these invisible walls everywhere, and that's always, to me, a sign of a problem, and we'll get to what that is in a minute. But here's a specific example on one wall. I'm going to open this wall up, and you've got it set as a high shed gable wall, which it doesn't need to be. And there's a bunch of walls that have settings in here that are not quite right. You've got combined with all above checked on here, and I don't think that needs to be checked. If you go over here to structure, you've manually changed the wall top height and the wall bottom height, which you might have to do in rare circumstances, but generally you should try not to adjust walls by dragging the top and the bottom up and down. Sometimes there's instances where you kind of have to, but generally you should not do that. Now here's your version, and here's my version. And so first off, you'll notice that there's a wall here because you've got a big hole here. So there's a wall here and there's a wall here. And let's open this wall up. And you can see that it's got default top and bottom heights. Over here on roof, it's just set as a hip wall. That's the default. And it's set as a roof cuts wall at bottom. And you notice how clean it is. Everything just looks like it should. And then this wall over here, it's a hip wall. Roof does not cut at bottom. It's just a standard old wall. So let's go over here, and here's the roof plane. Here's that shorter wall, and here's this longer wall. So if you look at this roof plane comes over here and interrupts the bottom of this wall over here. And so this wall being set to roof cuts wall at bottom, the roof plane gets drug under it, and that cuts it off at the bottom, and so you don't need that over here. So that's just a really simple way to use the program to, as it's designed to work. So you've got lots and lots of walls. Where you've changed the top and bottom heights, or at least the top heights, like this wall here. And that's why you've got all those invisible walls on the floor above. So if I check this and say OK, that's what happens. Chief makes this wall visible. So this is an attic wall. This room has a sloped ceiling. It follows the slope of the roof. And so if you're framing this, my thinking is that your framing is going to start at the bottom plate and it's going to go all the way up to the roof. You're not going to have a plate here in the middle. Now you might, but I'm thinking you shouldn't, or you won't. And so if you open this wall here, you go to structure and you check balloon through ceiling above, and you say OK. You'll see that the program automatically builds this wall all the way up to the roof. It's very clean. This room over here has got some other problems. You can do the same thing here, balloon through ceiling above, because you've changed the default wall height. Now one of the first things I noticed with this room was that the foundation doesn't continue around. It looks like you haven't rebuilt the foundation, because this room here, doesn't have a foundation under it. These rooms over here don't have a foundation under them. There's a bunch of stuff that's like that. So this room has some kind of problem. If you look underneath, you can see there's some kind of wall fragments sticking out underneath it. Unlike anywhere else, it's like that just in this one room. So I'm going to quickly fix that just by taking the object eyedropper and clicking in bedroom 2 and then clicking over here in bedroom 1. And of course it makes that into bedroom 2, but when you do that, you can see it picks this up, and you look under here and that's all nice and clean. If I build a foundation, all that gets cleaned up. The program this is kind of hard to explain, but the better the model is, the better the model is. And what I mean by that is that the more you fix, the more the program will fix itself. You've got this problem up here that you pointed out in your post with this goofy intersection. Well, I didn't do anything to specifically fix this. But if you look over here, let's turn around. I don't have that problem anymore. This is a, you know, all this looks correct. You've not used defaults very well. The program really relies on defaults. It's got all these automated features that, you know, designed to help you. A lot of times they're just in the way, but they're designed to help. And it largely relies on defaults to make things work. You've got some backsplashes here. Which there's nothing really wrong with that. It's just that I wonder why you've used backsplashes on these walls, but not on this wall back here. You know, why is this wall a wall, and that wall a wall, and not a, you know, a backsplash? So I'm going to turn off these backsplashes. That's another thing, is it's when you do something like put the backsplash on there, what you're doing is sort of hiding. You're covering up things that you probably ought to see. You notice how these two walls overlap, which they shouldn't. Again, this wall right here probably should be ballooned through ceiling above. So should this wall. But again, you've changed the wall top height. You can reset a bunch of this stuff easily. If you go over here to edit, reset to defaults, all floors, you can remove all the roof directives and walls, which you don't need because you've got manual roofs everywhere. You can reset wall top heights and wall bottom heights, and you can reset any of this other stuff too, but I'm going to click OK. And that'll automatically go around and change things. And you can see it messed something up here. It did, I think it did stuff over here. Basically, you probably shouldn't have some of these invisible walls. Probably most of them. I also noticed that some of your roof baselines are way out of whack. Like this baseline here. I can't even imagine what roof that goes with. You've got a roof baseline way out here. So I don't know. I don't know what roof that goes with. Let's delete. Now there's the roof baseline for that roof. You can see the baseline right here for this roof. I'm just going to delete that for a minute. Nope, that's not it. I'm going to undo that delete. Okay, when I reset the wall top and bottom heights, you see what happened back here. There's not even a wall back here anymore. And so this wall is set to roof cuts wall at bottom. So I'm going to uncheck that. And now you've got your wall back. You can also come over here to defaults, go down here to walls, general wall, and you can uncheck auto rebuild attic walls. And when you do that, the program won't automatically rebuild things like in this space over here to the left. It's not going to automatically refill those things, and that can make working on a house like this a lot easier, because that gives you complete control over things, and you won't wind up with this, all these attic walls that aren't really needed, like that one right there. If you delete something like that and it doesn't immediately want to come back, that means it's not needed. Because that was this space right up here. You can see here there's a hole. All right, that's a wall right there. I forgot what I did, but you can see that on the model I worked with, of course I ended up deleting some windows, and here you can see some problem here, but again, you can see everything's cleaned up. Here's kind of an unrelated thing. These windows don't line up. You got mold windows here, and if you look at them, they're not lined up correctly. That doesn't really matter. That's just a visual thing. Anyway, like I said, I could spend a lot of time fixing things. There's a problem back over here. When I when I reset the top and bottom heights, a lot of things are going to need to be fixed. I'm guessing that this color right here is your default material, and that you've painted it this darker color. So it's always best to start out, set your defaults, if you want this darker color, make that the color in your wall, and then when Chief does things, it knows what to use. You got to help the program out, and it'll help you. Anyway, this what you've got here is Chief doesn't like this kind of house. There's too much that's is different. This is the version I worked on, and you can see some problems here, like that wall right there is a problem. But you can see in here where you were asking about, this is all cleaned up. And again, I'm pretty sure that I did nothing specific to do this. I just cleaned up a bunch of other things, and the program then built this correctly. I noticed that this under here, right under this landing, is not the same elevation as under here. You know, so I don't have any way of knowing if that's the way it is in real life or if it's something different. If it's supposed to be the same, getting all that kind of stuff correct again goes to allowing the program to build a better model. You can see right in here, it's kind of hard to see, but this roof plane, is not butted up against this wall. If you zoom in here, here's the edge of the roof plane. And now it is. Little bitty things like that will affect You might think that that's not important. But all these little bitty things, you can see how this jogs. Maybe it needs to for some reason, but it probably doesn't. All these little bitty things add up to the whole. The better you get, the closer you get, the more correct you get with all these little things, the better the model's going to be. Because the way the program works, these little half-inch things that are missed change something else that's, appears to be unrelated. To the program, it's related, but to you and I looking at it, you think, well, how could fixing one thing change something else? But it does. So here's a final tip. That's just a tip. Well, here's a couple of tips. The first is go up here and adjust sunlight. This is the default. And if you'll use generic sun and then sun follows camera, you'll get lighting everywhere. And let's see, the other thing is these little things. I notice you use soffits for these things. And they, of course, a soffit works. I always think that people that come from home designer are the ones that use soffits for these kind of things, because that's kind of all you have. But in Chief, you have what they're now calling 3D solids. And the benefit to using a 3D solid, one of the benefits, is you've got this elevation reference. A soffit is a cabinet. These 3D solids you can change. For instance, I can change it from roof. And then I can say -8 for instance. And then you see how it moves up in relation to the roof. A soffit, you don't have that. You can say place under ceiling, or you can say place under roof. But that doesn't always do what you want. And the other thing is soffits, by default, they're made to go inside. And if you... I just turned off the... I just turned off the terrain, I think. The soffits will sometimes adjust themselves to the terrain. Anyway, I would use solids quicker, a lot quicker than I would use soffits because you just got more control. Anyway, this has gone about 20 minutes longer than I wanted it to. I didn't address your railing question. I didn't really look at that. I'd suggest that you start with a general cleanup of everything else. And then try to figure out how to get this stuff in here working like you want.